In this presentation, we will be looking at why atoms bond and also how they bond. To start with, we will look at two elements. First, we will look at sodium and chlorine and how these two atoms bond together. You should remember from previous work that the group number that an element is in tells you how many electrons there are in its outer shell. As sodium is in group 1, we know that it has 1 electron in its outer shell. Chlorine is in group 7, so it has 7 electrons in its outer shell. Let's take a look at the electron structure of sodium and chlorine to see why they bond. The atomic number of sodium tells us that it has 11 protons in its nucleus, and as with all atoms, the number of electrons is always equal to the number of protons. Therefore, we know that sodium has 11 electrons. These are ordered as follows. 2 electrons in the first shell, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the second shell, and 1 in the outer shell. And as we already know, sodium is in group 1, and we can see that there is 1 electron in the outer shell. Chlorine, on the other hand, has 17 electrons, and they are arranged as follows. 2 in the first shell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the second shell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the outer shell, and chlorine is in group 7, and we can see here that there are 7 electrons in the outer shell. The reason why atoms want to bond is because they want a full outer shell of electrons. Now, in the case of sodium, this is a metal atom. We can see that there is 1 electron in the outer shell. Now, it is far easier for sodium to lose this 1 electron in the outer shell than to gain 7 more electrons to fill up that outer shell. Likewise, with chlorine, it has 7 electrons in its outer shell. It is far easier for chlorine to gain 1 more electron to fill its outer shell rather than to lose all 7 in its outer shell. Now, in this particular case, because we are dealing with a metal atom and a non-metal atom, we have a situation where sodium will lose its outer electron to the chlorine atom. And so what happens is that when sodium and chlorine react, this outer electron in sodium is transferred to the chlorine atom. This type of reaction where electrons are transferred from a metal atom to a non-metal atom is what we call a redox reaction. And in this reaction, we have 2 things happening at the same time. We have reduction, which is the gain of electrons, and we have oxidation, which is the loss of electrons. And in this particular case, what is happening is that the sodium is being oxidized, it is losing its outer electron, and the chlorine is being reduced, it is gaining an electron. Notice that it is only the outer shell electrons that are involved in bonding. After the electron has been transferred from the sodium to the chlorine atom, we can see that each of the atoms now has a full outer shell of electrons. Now, because the sodium has lost 1 electron, it therefore has 1 more proton than electrons, and consequently it will therefore have a positive charge. Likewise, the chlorine atom has gained 1 extra electron, and consequently it will therefore have a negative charge. These charged particles are called ions, and because these ions have opposite charges, they attract each other. Positive ions are called cations, and negative ions are called anions. The the force that holds oppositely charged ions together is called an electrostatic force. And this type of force, holding oppositely charged ions together, results in what we call ionic bonding.